You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition to the Rouge Radio podcast. This is episode 446, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton, and you can follow me on Twitter at Rouge Daltz. And joining me, you can follow him on Twitter at Tony Rouge. Tony, we got a great show today, and most of it is announcements. But first, before we get to that house cleaning, how's it going, buddy?
It's going very good. Back in my old situation, back in my house, from a quick trip at home. So I get to do this from my better setup, and just looking at the picture that we get to see, I'm like, I don't remember the screen ever being that wide. Usually I only get about this much of my background.
Yeah.
So we've even upped the quality of the video here, apparently.
Okay, so let's talk about the jerseys behind you. Okay, so it's the Calgary Stampeders and I believe the Hamilton Tiger Cats circa 2005?
That's a good question. I don't know what year that would have been around. No, it would have been past, I'm thinking 2008 maybe.
Okay. Obviously no names, no numbers
no,
on
those
the
ones
Tiger
don't
Cat
get
jerseys.
lettered up.
No.
Nothing lettered up. Those ones just
You didn't bother
purchases.
getting you didn't get what's his name? Quentin Porter or
No.
Kevin Eakin.
No, nothing like that.
Oh, how about that for the revisionist of the unceremonious name drop, right? Quentin Porter and
exactly.
Kevin Eakin. So a lot of people probably wondering, hey, you guys are live. Didn't you go live yesterday? And
nope, we did not.
we got like 20 minutes into the show, and I said it was technical difficulties, and I didn't talk to you because I was away out of the house earlier in the day. Obviously I had teenager issues, and I thought, okay, my wife was calling down to me, said, hey, we got to get out, you got to help, blah 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 blah. Turns out the police were at our door.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so some I won't go into details because I don't know, I don't want people looking me up with the police and whatnot, but to err on the side of caution, so we all had to actually leave the house. And,
oh dear.
A lot of so if anybody was like, which is funny because we're like in the nice part of Winnipeg. Yeah. I think everything south of downtown is the nice part of Winnipeg, and then you get to downtown, and that's where True North, or I guess Canada Life Center is right now, but nobody's going there now. But we got a great show, and as I mentioned earlier, we've got some heavy announcements. First off, let's talk about it. You asked for it, episode 450. We've got a guest. You want to do a little drum beat, the drum roll. All right, that was a crazy attempt at that. Coming in a couple of weeks, 4 weeks to be exact, to joining us for the milestone event of 450, Mr. Number 5, Kevin Glenn. That is awesome.
That's amazing. I couldn't believe it. I think I got the notification before you did because you messaged him, and I saw the notification on my phone of Kevin Glenn saying that sounds like something like it would be fantastic, or it'd be great, honored to do it. So unbelievable that we're going to actually get to sit here and chat with Kevin Glenn about the Canadian Football League. I never thought I'd see the day. I would put that up with the time we got to chat with Milt Stegall.
I was going to say that. It's like, you know what, to be honest, I fanboyed over the fact that we talked to Chris Cuthbert, we talked to David Sanchez, Milt Stiegel. I don't know. This is going to be hard because we did those were audio interviews.
Mm-hmm.
This, because we're live on YouTube or live on Twitter, this is a video, and this is going to be like
face to
I'm going to have
face.
to, I'm going to have to contain my enthusiasm.
Yeah, this is not going to be the two comfortable dads in cotton t-shirts episode of Rouge Radio. This is going to have to be looking better than this.
You know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to get some Scotch tape or masking tape. Put a
I
number
will admit,
5 on your Hamilton Tiger Cats in Calgary.
I have a number 5 Hamilton Tiger Cats jersey.
Craig East? Is it Craig East?
Yes, it is. It is. I bought into Craig East when he had that 2-touchdown game against Toronto.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Didn't quite pan out after that.
Oh, you know what? I can't wait.
We won't tell Kevin Glenn that. I'm going to face it front side, so you just need the number 5, and we're going to tell him it's Kevin Glenn on the other side.
Well, I think he wore a different number with Calgary, did he not? I think he wore something different.
No, mine's a Tiger Cats one.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying, it's like if he did the masking tape with the jerseys in front of it. But we could definitely do that. And unless he calls you on it, it says, "Hey, turn it around." I just want to make sure. Please don't do that.
It may be one of the greatest CFL jersey fails of all time, actually, my Craig East.
Yeah, oh God.
Actually, I have two I classify jersey fails. The Craig East, and I've got a Sven Berchi Flames jersey.
Oh.
That was a bad one.
Oh, jeez.
Anyways.
And if you're listening to the show or watching the show, you know that one of my hobbies is trade trees.
Mm-hmm.
Never done a Kevin Glenn trade tree. I mean, we did one, and that's how the Ottawa Red Blacks became Grey Cup champions. But I want to get his thoughts on trade trees if he's, because he's been traded countless times, but he's been traded for draft picks. One of the most innocuous trades that I remember. I don't know if you remember back in 2004, the Bombers and Riders and Argonauts got involved in a 3-way trade. They called it a 3-way trade, but it was 2 different transactions, and it was a weird transaction. So get this. Saskatchewan trades Kevin Glenn to Toronto for future considerations. Then Toronto flips him over to Winnipeg for a 3rd overall pick. Toronto takes that 3rd overall pick back to Saskatchewan in lieu of the future consideration. So after all is said and done, Saskatchewan gets a 3rd overall pick in 2005. Winnipeg gets Kevin Glenn. Toronto operated their phone line for about an hour. they got absolutely nothing. So I want to know, like, who sat down Kevin Glenn and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to trade you to Winnipeg, but you're going to have a little detour in Pearson International." Like that's how it's going to work. So I can't wait to talk to him about that one. See if he has any insight, because Roy Shivers would have been the general manager for Saskatchewan at that time. Plus, this was around the time where Kevin Glenn had just almost engineered a come-from-behind victory against the Edmonton Football Club in the 2003 Western Final before Edmonton knocked them off and going to the Grey Cup and eventually winning that Grey Cup. But again, we're talking too much about Kevin Glenn. These are questions and answers that we're going to get from him in a few weeks. Anything else is new?
Nothing new from this point from the 450th episode standpoint. No.
So more announcements. So we've become accustomed to recording on Sundays. Obviously, today being a Monday, this is just disregard that. We are going to be changing our schedule starting the week after Labor Day weekend. We are going to be recording on Wednesdays, and the reason for that is we have an affiliate partner as part of the Rouge Radio podcast. And if you are looking, and if you're watching this live on YouTube, you could. There's the website. There's the news, the ticker across, Tony.
But do not use that link. Yeah, do not use that link yet because it's not live. So you won't get any of the advantages of going to the link through us yet. So that's what it's going to be. We'll let you know when that link goes live. So that way, we can work together to get you ahead on your sports betting.
Yeah. So long story short, we now have been approached and have accepted an affiliate partnership with Sports Interactives, SIA.com. We're going to be your go-to for betting odds for the CFL. And the reason why we're going to be broadcasting on Wednesdays is because betting lines are just not available earlier this week. Sometimes on games with us start on Thursday, the betting lines are, still available sometime Monday. But unfortunately, they are just not available at this time. So starting after Labor Day weekend, we will be broadcasting on Wednesdays. So we'll get all the up-to-date information, including depth charts, any assessment with your fantasy too as well. That'll come in handy. But majority talking bets, spreads, over-under. And of course, the good thing with Sports Interaction is there's in-game betting. You can bet within the quarters, halftime. Like that is just insurmountable. Like you can have there's a lot of opportunity for you if you are heavy into the gambling. And of course, like
what
always,
I'm excited for. I was going to say what you're going to say.
We're going to say, as Tony and I have strongly suggested, is to gamble responsibly.
And the thing is, I'm not a huge sports bettor. I've done it in the past, usually just my pro lines or sports selects, and I've done a lot of that. I'm excited to get my feet wet in a little bit more broader spectrum of CFL betting. And the good thing, you go to Sports Interaction website, you will be operating in Canadian dollars. That's a good thing. We're not going through an American betting site anymore. And they have a great page too on insights that explains what a plus 240 and a negative 240 was. And I didn't understand that. Now I understand because they have very simple explanations on how to understand, to bet, to make your money. And what I'm most looking for, though, is they have prop bets. And prop bets are your standard, what colored Gatorade are they going to pour on the head coach after you win the Grey Cup, and what the halftime show, what songs they're going to sing at the halftime. But I mean, there's great prop bets on too. Right now, I think for a $10 prop bet on the Bombers having a perfect season. Last time I checked, a $10 bet gets like 260 if the Bombers can go perfect. So
yeah,
there's a lot of fun on there, and more as we go along, and very exciting times. When that site goes live, you'll be able to, your first deposit, whatever you put in, match that at 100%. So put $100 in, instantly you've got $200 to bet with. So
yeah, and the one con about doing this now is that we won't have betting odds available while we do the show. But if you follow us on Twitter, as I mentioned at the top of the program, at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Dalton, Tony at Tony Rouge, we will monitor that as the weeks progress, and we will follow through with that. I don't know if we were actually going to go hardcore into the bet earlier on, but we will actually play along as if we did, and then go through the results on the following week. So we'll let you know as to how successful we are.
And the good thing is too, we always give scores. So even if you without your odds, you'll still be able to do your over under or something like that. We can give you your over because we do give you the score. So at least if you're betting now, we'll give you an idea of when it comes up on the scores we give, if you're taking the over, the under, or to cover the points. So something we'll tweet out. There'll be a lot of tweeting anyways on odds.
Yeah, if you weren't sick of all the betting ads through CFL or on TSN, you may get sick because we're going to be heavily into that. If it's not dad jokes or pictures of me and jorts, it's going to be betting odds through 4 CFL games. And of course, make sure to follow us for at least until we go live on Wednesdays, early September. Let's go to Global Rouge 2.0. Let's go through all the cities and countries that are listening to the Rouge Radio podcast. Is sponsored by cgiant.ca. Enter the promo code Rouge for discounts on sporting events or any tickets in your area. Here are the top countries that are listening to the podcast. We got your Canada, United States, Australia, France, Bermuda, Mexico, Switzerland, United Kingdom, and Germany. Top cities: Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, St. Albert, Victoria, Fort Collins, Colorado, Vancouver, Ottawa, and Montreal. Where is Fort Collins, Colorado? And do you know?
I'm trying to think of maybe a player that they've talked about in the league that might have some family checking in, but Colorado, I got nothing there.
I have no idea where that would be. That is strange. Fort Collins, Colorado. Well, we appreciate everybody that you're tuning in. You know, even if you're a Canadian, if you travel through Colorado, Fort Collins, you're like, hey, I'm going to tune into the Rouge Radio podcast. We appreciate that. We appreciate all listeners of all locations. Let's get to before, because everybody's gonna we know what it is, but we have to do this segment. Let's go to this week's magnificent bastard.
Number one. Seinfeld, you magnificent bastard.
Tony, who grabbed your attention this week? And
I don't know. I wonder if where could I be going this week?
Oh, God.
Where could I be going for this week's magnificent bastard? I can't possibly imagine. There you go. Didn't see that one coming. I dropped that on you.
Oh,
but how
man, you would only get that aspect if you're tuning in and watching live on YouTube. But I've actually grabbed a print screen, so hopefully I'm just going to actually tweet that soon. So
the most entertaining team in the Canadian Football League right now. One of the most electrifying quarterbacks, Canadian or American, we've seen in decades. And how do you not give, like, my shtick aside, how do you not give it to just a quarterback? Let's take Canadian out of the equation. 5 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, over 400 yards. By halftime, they're talking about him breaking Matt Dunnigan's single game passing record of what, 712? Is that what it's 712?
713. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Sorry, Matt, I ripped you off a yard there. My bad. I ripped you off. And it was probably just a yak yard anyway, so it shouldn't really count. But seriously, I mean, tell me this guy isn't just straight fire right now. Like, this guy is, his face should be on every Canadian newspaper. This guy should be selling me Top Dogs and all kinds, like home hardware commercials, everything, like selling me Baconators. This guy he just owns Canada right now. And I don't care about that. Everyone's like, well, then he's not going to be in Canada for long. But you know what? He's here now, and he's not going anywhere. So let's drink in every second of it. And I don't want to hear your garbage about, let's get to Labor Day. Let's see how he does against Winnipeg, yada, yada, yada. Who cares? This kid is fire right now. And if every Canadian father has worked their salt out in BC, every kid on Christmas morning should be asking for a Nathan Rourke jersey under the Christmas tree, because I don't even know if we'll see anything like this again. I've never seen anything in this in my lifetime. Like, I wasn't born till 1976. So Russ Jackson was already done. So I've never witnessed anything like this in my whole life. And if I did, I'd have been too young to remember Russ Jackson anyway. So hands down, my shtick aside, it is easy and legit to give Nathan Rourke this week's You Magnificent Bastard.
There we go. And what a game that he had. Crazy. There was a 34-37. And what's the crazy thing about it is he didn't come close to breaking the consecutive completion streak.
I know.
Like, how does that happen? Like that, to even go that's nitpicking on his game. We'll talk
477 yards. 477 yards, like, unbelievable. And now with just 21 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions, that's gross. How do you beat that? Obviously, Winnipeg has, Winnipeg has. And don't give me, but he played the Elks baloney, because I don't see anyone else doing that to the Elks.
Well, I mean,
they're beating them.
Yeah, but you match up perfectly against certain teams. Like, I'll buy that argument. And and on the other side, Edmonton matches up better with other teams. The teams that they do not match up well is BC. But it's not like BC's only doing that to Edmonton. BC did that to Toronto. They did that to They offensively they did it to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. They still even put up almost 30 against Winnipeg.
28 unanswered points against Saskatchewan. I think it was 28. I could be wrong about that, but still in 2 quarters of work. But
that's things like I don't care that it was against the Elks. If you're supposed to do that against the Elks, they did it. You know what? That's the only thing that's important. If you're saying, well, they should blow out the Elks, right? And they did. They didn't struggle with the Elks. They didn't. In the first 8 minutes, it was tied, and then the game was over. But even then, 2 fumbles from the Elks, and BC made them pay. Like, this team, there's no I need to see them play argument here. I believe BC is legit, and they are entertaining. And how could, if you don't have a CFL team, jump on the BC bandwagon right now. And even if you're in the East, cheer for the BC Lions then. And there's no conflict of interest for you. Like, they're such an easy team to cheer for right now.
Oh, certainly. And then, and what was good is, but that there's it seems that there's an infatuation with all things BC Lions in Vancouver. I mean, attendance wise, it started out awesome in week 1 and it just kind of went down a little bit, but it seems like it's working its way back. And that's all that we want. Let's go to the next segment. This one's sponsored by Manscaped.com. Let's go. Let's just add the read here. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Rouge at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com and use the code Rouge. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Let's see what is trending. This is weird music in the background that I found. It's got the weird robotic voice. Here's what's trending across the CFL. After throwing for 5 touchdowns against the Edmonton Elks, Nathan Rourke only has to throw 2.5 touchdowns per game the rest of the season to beat Doug Flutie's record set back in the 90s. The Montreal Alouettes made some noise off the field, and yes, pun intended, after 3 hours of being roasted online during last Thursday's game for the annoying air horn, the team, through its Twitter account earlier today, sent the following tweet. We're taking the air horn complaints from last week's game very seriously. If you feel like they should be banned from our stadium, please reply to this tweet. Sincerely yours, the Montreal Alouettes. The joke? They turned off the replies. That was just a master troll job. Well done, Montreal. Speaking of the Als, Nick Lewis and Odell Willis went off on Twitter about the accountability or lack thereof as the discipline issues are getting worse for the Als. Proof? Under Kahari Jones, the Owls were penalized a total of 76.25 yards per game. Under Danny Machocha, 116.75. And finally, it seems people heard our show last week as we still strive for hashtag Rourke for Lou Marsh. Arash Madani, of all people, sent out a tweet 2 days ago, and I quote, through the first 7 months of 2022, Canada's top athlete of the year, Nathan Rourke, Brooke Henderson, Cale Makar, plus Jordan Romano. Still a long way to go. Another tennis slam, home major for Henderson, World Cup awaits, etc., etc. But Rourke is far and away the leader so far. And that is what is trending in the CFL this week. Tony, anything that you kind of want to navigate for any one of those subjects that you want to talk about?
Yeah, and and the thing is, I won't campaign against any of the people mentioned in that with Nathan Rourke. Honestly, I don't think Romero has a chance. I don't like the Cale Makar pick. I'm sorry, I just don't. Just because you're talking about a player in a sport with 700 equally as good Canadians, I have an issue with that one. I love Brooke Henderson, but Brooke Henderson did it. She's the best at her sport. She is not introducing the world to women Canadian golfers or Canadian golfers. We are not new to the golf world, the LPGA or the PGA. But what she does is amazing. She's dominating what she does. but she's done it. Canadians are not a surprise on the LPGA. A Canadian quarterback in the Canadian CFL, like just a Canadian quarterback, period. Canadian CFL or NFL, we don't see it. But now we're seeing a Canadian quarterback heads and shoulder above anything we've ever seen before, and it's historic. We're witnessing something truly amazing in Canadian sports, and I think right now, Grey Cup or no Grey Cup, because people are going to say that he needs to win the Grey Cup, I don't think he does. If he breaks a couple of records today, if he breaks some Russ Jackson records or even breaks straight CFL records, I think the Grey Cup is not required, because he is take your kids out of hockey and put them in football, because Nathan Rourke proves that if you actually put your time and effort into a Canadian athlete to play football, they're going to make it. And it's a lot easier to make it in the Canadian Football League if you're Canadian and good than if you're Canadian trying to get into the NHL.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And while we kind of broke bad on him last week, it adds a little bit of credibility to our statement, hashtag Rourke for Lou Marsh, that the one Arash Madani is now spearheading that. At least he's got a little bit more followers than we do. But let it be known, we were the first. Let it be known. Anything else from what's trending around that you want to talk about?
Nope, very good.
All right, so let's get to this week's Week 10 preview, and of course, like we mentioned about earlier today, is that we don't have the odds available, but we can just generally go through the score. I imagine this Thursday, Winnipeg hosting the Montreal Alouettes, a return from the back-to-back game. Montreal, I would imagine, or Winnipeg, sorry, I would imagine would be opening up 7-8 point odd favorites. Trevor Harris took a day off in practice today, or I think yesterday. Dom Davis took number 1 reps. Greg Ellingson back for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, at least for practicing. Adam Bighill missed. The big thing here is with the Greg Ellingson is he draws a lot of DPIs. Montreal takes a lot of DPIs. Montreal takes a lot of penalties, including DPIs. For me as a perspective, I know we usually get you to start off, but I'll because they went through all this, I'll start off this one. I think right now Winnipeg, they always have this up and down offensively, where I don't know if it's they're not opening up the playbook for the first half of this back to back. We saw what they did against Toronto a month ago, and then they just went like just all Madden against BC. They did the same thing against Edmonton, and then they just went all crazy against Calgary. Not exactly the most ideal way offensively, but they got it done against Montreal. They're at home. It's kind of like maybe it's that, and they're going into a bye, so that's one thing that they need. Probably a slow start, similar, but I'm going to take Montreal. I'm going to take Winnipeg with the assumed points. I'm going to say Winnipeg wins this one 30-22. What do you say with this one?
Yeah, there's not a lot to dissect other than Montreal doesn't seem to be turning the corner. Trevor Harris, like we've said, I did give him some props last week, but he's still Trevor Harris. He's not going to solve anything in Montreal this season. He'll maybe make a score look respectable, but you're going into Winnipeg to take on the juggernaut Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And again, this season, Winnipeg's been making games closer than I think we've expected them to be. Some teams have put up some weaker, it's hard to say some weaker teams because that's the other 8 teams in the Canadian Football League. We've seen some perceived weaker teams hang around maybe in the first half against Winnipeg, and then it's just bam, bam, bam. We'll steal the ball, we'll run it in ourselves, or we'll return a punt, we'll return a kickoff, and then next thing you know, you're trailing by 21 points out of the blue. And I don't know if Montreal's got some fight in them at the beginning. Maybe it slow starters. If I have any book on the Bombers for this, a slow start. So if you are betting by the halves, maybe keep it close. And the one thing, I know this seems a little bit, I don't want this to sound forced, but to bring up our new sponsors, if you do bet anything that's 3 points or less, if you get it, or if you're exactly 3 points off, your bet's a push. So if you lose the bet, but it's by 3 points, it's a push. You don't lose your money. Maybe if you can do in-game betting for that one, you might win it at the halftime. But if Montreal keeps it close, Winnipeg is definitely going to open up it after the second half. I have 28-14 Bombers, and they stay perfect through 10 games now.
And how crazy was that fourth quarter against Montreal last week? Like, it was 14...
I know I turned it on with 8 minutes left, and because because traveling from work, I was home, and I put the game on I was with my kids. I'm like, oh wow, it's like a tie game. I think with 8 minutes left, maybe it could have been some more time. I don't remember the time exactly. Yeah. I'm like, oh kids, Bombers got a perfect season on the line, and they're having a little bit of trouble here. And then all of a sudden, bang bang boom, Winnipeg's up by 14 points or something, 18. And it's like, wow, so much for that. So much for that excitement.
And you nailed it. It wasn't like it was like 7 points here, 7 points here. It was like just like bang, bang, bang. It was they ran the whole field for that first touchdown. It was a quarterback sneak, and then forcing the 2-and-out, punt return for a touchdown, get an interception, you punt, and it was like it was like, where the heck did this come from? Like, if this was a boxing match, Montreal was going toe-to-toe with Winnipeg, and then all of a sudden just Winnipeg just had the KO punch halfway through the fourth quarter. So it was just amazing that happened. Toronto in Hamilton, another second half of the back-to-back. I'll let you start with this one. Where do you see this one going?
And it's that Jekyll and Hyde Toronto Argonauts team that I talked about last week that I didn't know. Like, I don't know what to do with Toronto. This is going to be the toughest one when we come to predicting games, because going into our predictions last week, I said if it was any other team, I was picking Hamilton straight for a loss. But Toronto can beat Saskatchewan back-to-back and then lose to Ottawa in the third week. Like, I can't get a gauge on these Argos. And, of course, the Argos won because I picked the Ticats to win. But I just can't pick the Argos to win. I don't know why. They can. And Hamilton is horrible enough. Like, another absolute just collapse by the Tiger Cats. And next thing you know, Toronto's got control of this football game. And again, that was another one where just an absolute calamity of errors at the end of the football game for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. In this instance, being back in Hamilton, I am going to give the Tiger Cats more of the benefit of the doubt, because I just am not confident in this Toronto Argonauts team to keep stringing games together. And they can lose just as confidently as I can say they can win. I don't know how to pick this football team. I'm going to take the Ticats right now, though, in a close one, 26-24.
Yeah, I think this time. It's these kind of games where you kind of have to give it to the team that lost the week before. I mean, that's just where my gut goes. You get Toronto, who is like so consistent. We always talk about, well, this team isn't what their record is, like, or they're better than their record, or they're worse than their record. Like, I don't even know if Toronto even knows what their record is. Yeah. Like, they don't even know what their identity is. Like, there's like, I mentioned on another episode how Paul LaPolice was just letting his team down because of, poor clock management. Like, it was almost the same instantaneous thing that's happened in Toronto. Not maybe with clock management, but there's some coaching gaffes. There's some missed throws. There's some sloppy defensive play. Now, last week, it was thankful that they were facing the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who somehow seemed to find a different gear in the second half. Unfortunately, that different gear is like neutral, right? It's not like they're in gear 1 or 2 in the first half, and then they go neutral or maybe they even go reverse in the second half. But as much, like, I think this is one of those where you fall forward instead of fall back for Hamilton. Like, you screw up upwards. I think Hamilton wins this one, and this is not going to be a pretty game. You're going to see interceptions galore from McLeod Bethel Thompsons. You're going to see the same thing from Dane Evans.
He threw a god awful one that pretty much sealed the game. Like, that was,
that game was over, but geez, that was like, it was a bad decision and a even worse throw for you to do that. And
when that happened the first time, like, man, that 2-5 or whatever, even that record flatters the Tiger Cats right now.
Yeah.
Like, that actually flatters them. They're so horrible.
Yeah.
But-
and this is on Friday Night Football. I think this is going to be what Toronto doesn't do as opposed to what Hamilton does. But I do think Hamilton comes ahead with this one. Low scoring game, maybe 22-20. Hamilton wins this one. The game of the week, possibly and probably it will be the game of the week. It is a race for second in the West. The BC Lions go into Calgary. Now, everybody said, hey, they lost to the Winnipeg. Let's see what you got against the other two teams. They beat Saskatchewan. Now everybody's like, okay, Saskatchewan sucks. So now BC has got to beat Calgary, and they're in Calgary. Where do you see this one going? BC Lions into McMahon to face the Stampeders.
For me, the biggest matchup here is going to be Bo Levi Mitchell versus BC's defense. Bo does like to give up the interception. It's going to be his, what they talk about long after his career is over, is that Bo liked to throw interceptions at very bad times in football games. And Bo is going to have to fight through what is looking like a very strong BC defense. And I think that's where the matchup is. Now, Nathan Rourke doesn't have much of a better matchup against Calgary's defense. I've been pumping Calgary's tires all season long, saying that they are progressing very nicely and very rapidly. They are susceptible to a deep ball, though. That scares me. And when you've got a quarterback like Rourke that loves going deep, he has more potential to burn the Calgary defense, as where Bo is probably going to really struggle to read those plays and make sure he doesn't make the wrong pass, because Bo throws interceptions. And what we've seen from Nathan Rourke right now is he does not throw interceptions, or at least very rarely compared to the touchdowns that he throws. 21 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions through 7 games so far in 2002. So that's where my focus is right now, especially. And Calgary needs Carey to come back in this football game. He is their MVP so far. You can survive a week against Ottawa without that run game, but you're going to need a balanced attack against BC. And that's where my focus. Can Bo Levi Mitchell handle reading this BC Lions defense on this day, and just how electrifying BC is right now? I think they are just a team that is young and almost too dumb to know that they shouldn't be winning football games, and they don't care. And they are a family. I don't know if you saw that video of the owner in the locker room with his BC Lions shoes on, giving that family speech. Just even I'm getting goosebumps like thinking about it. And as much as the Calgary Stampeder fan in me would love to get a win, the football logic in me is I don't think the Calgary Stampeders can beat this BC Lions team right now. And I think BC is going to do it more comfortably than you think. There might be some garbage time points, if that what you want to call it, for the Stampeders at the end of the football game when BC already has it in hand. It's like, okay, you can score a touchdown, but it's going to take you 7 minutes to do it. 31-21. I see the Lions taking this one, and the Rourke juggernaut continues.
Some big news coming out of Calgary. Trey Roberson has been added to the 6th game and possibly out for the season. So you got that. You got Kadeem Carey, who's a game time decision, at least as of this recording. Who knows what's going to. Dedrick Mills performed admirably. 16 carries, 100 yards against the Ottawa Redblacks. He is going to be focused. Him and Peyton Logan are going to be. They're going to need to be relied upon heavily going into this game. But I agree with you. I think BC is holding the heavy hand right now. They've got the momentum. Calgary, they limped into Ottawa and barely came in. And by the way, kudos to Mark Killam. Everybody has been talking about Mark Killam being the next guy to be a head coach from a coordinator. And while we don't know if he was calling 100% of the plays or making all the in-game adjustments, but he gets his first win. And that's Calgary Stampeder structure, where a backup coach ends up coming in and you don't notice a drop off as far as coaching wise. But aside from that, I'm with you on that one. I think the Rourke Romania going into Calgary, with Calgary just losing 2 straight to Winnipeg, really not defensively. They were okay against Ottawa, but again, it was Ottawa. And I just now they're hobbling in, hosting a hot team who is healthy, a healthy Brian Burnham. I don't like this. You said 31-21. I'm going to go more with BC, but I'm going to stick with the Calgary score. I'll say 37-21 BC. And I think you're right. That 21 might be a late touchdown. Jake Mayer comes into play somewhere in the late second half. But I'm going to stick with you on that one.
I just want to add this on before we move on to. I think when you watched Killam coach, I think you can see if he was running the show, you can see where he was making very conservative plays. He didn't want to do anything too risky. I thought a lot of times you could tell that he was taking his foot. I don't know if taking his foot off the gas is right, because they weren't running and doing anything down Ottawa's throat, but he was taking the safe way out a lot, it felt, and he didn't want to make any mistakes, because honestly, whether he thought he was or not, or ever wants a coaching job, that was essentially an audition or an interview to at least 2 or 3 CFL teams that might be looking for a coach in the off season and are going to approach him and say, listen, we saw you against Ottawa. We kind of like what you're seeing and stuff like that. So that was good. And the second point, because we did talk about the defense, the interception, I believe, by Wall, I love when you don't see the player in the play and all of a sudden he just runs in, grabs the ball and keeps going. Like I just love how that looks. Like, it's like, oh, is it going to be complete? Is it going to be incomplete? So all of a sudden, yoinks, and he just right through. I love that.
There were some bad quarterbacking in that game for Ottawa. Like if it wasn't Caleb Evans, it was Nick Arbuckle, and it was just unbelievable. Last game of the week, the Saskatchewan Roughriders coming back from the bye to go into Edmonton to face the Edmonton Elks. I gotta say, Saskatchewan coming back from the bye, relatively healthy. Same game plan, but I would say that they'd be foolish if they didn't go heavy on the run on this game. Edmonton, last in the league, at least from what I remember, last in the league, and if not second last in the league against the run. That defense had some hard times. If there's anything that they could do, the Saskatchewan can do, is get that running game, run it often. If Cody Fajardo's sitting back there throwing 20 passes a game, they've already effed up. But coming off the bye, if Cody Fajardo's playing and they really want to extend his health for an extra game, this is what they need to do. Saskatchewan should, and I think that they will win this one. Not prettiest, but this is going to be heavily on the ground for Saskatchewan, and Edmonton just does not have the answers, at least to their run defense woes. Saskatchewan wins this one. I'll say 25-14. What do you see?
Edmonton is just one of those teams that might be they play not to lose more than they're playing to dominate the other team or to flat out win. They can put up a good fight, but I don't think they're a team yet that is going to go out and control the majority of the football game. And that's what you need to be able to do against Saskatchewan. I don't have Saskatchewan in my top tier of teams. My big 3, Winnipeg, BC, and Calgary right now. I don't have Saskatchewan at that level, but they're not, but I don't have them in the bad tier. If the 3 teams I named are your A group, I would probably put Saskatchewan all by themselves in the B tier, and then everyone else can go in the C tier. So Saskatchewan's in the middle of the road. They're good enough to beat an Edmonton Elks team that isn't very good. They'll probably struggle. Saskatchewan seems to be struggling all year, and I mean, those injuries, I can only accept that as an excuse for so much, because every team has injuries. Like Calgary last week was missing their potential MOP candidate, but they got the job done. Saskatchewan is missing key parts, but they're not getting it done. And I'll accept it to a point. This is a team, Saskatchewan, that you should win or should beat. This should be a win. And I'm going to give it to Saskatchewan. I think Edmonton is just that bad. They can't play a whole football game. They'll tail off again in the second half. Saskatchewan 26, Edmonton 17.
Everybody starts talking about, oh, there's parity in the league. But we haven't really differentiated from our picks this week.
No.
We both have Winnipeg. We both have Hamilton. We both have BC. And we both have Saskatchewan. Add on to your point about the excuse. The COVID game, the return game from Toronto, you can excuse that. That's just one of those things where it just happens. You have the injuries. You have COVID just bite into your locker room. Okay, I could excuse that. That's fine. That nobody is really, met that kind of situation. Okay, I get that. But once you start getting, and you could start having the excuse, well, we've had a bad schedule. We haven't had a bye in 8 weeks or 9 weeks. We've had injuries. We had COVID. Like, those excuses can only go so far. And I hate to bring it back. Winnipeg hasn't had their bye. Guess what Winnipeg is missing? Their starting center. They were up for the last 4 weeks. They were missing their top receiver. They were also they're on their third string safety. They're on a backup linebacker. They're also on a backup strong side linebacker. They're also without Jackson Jeffcoat for a couple of weeks. I understand that people are saying, well, this is the reason why. But then those excuses start to fall when you get other teams that are actually meeting the same obstacles and keep on winning. And I hate to say this for Winnipeg, man, you are a victim of your own success in Winnipeg. Because now, like I just said, okay, well, other teams don't have an excuse because now Bombers are winning despite that. But man, what if Winnipeg loses? What is going to be their excuse? Their only excuse was they just got beat by a better team. Like, you can't use any excuse. You just got beat by a better team. That's the only thing.
There you go. So that concludes our new segment called Dulce's Soapbox, sponsored by Dove for Men.
Yeah. Oh, you just know, like, a PR guy who works for Dove is listening. Hey, we want to sponsor your podcast.
For Dulce's Soapbox, brought to you by Dove for Men. There you go.
Oh, that'll wrap it up for episode 446. Again, we will be recording on Sundays going forward until after Labor Day, then Wednesdays, and that is going to be our strict schedule for the remainder of the season. Again, keep tuned to us on Twitter at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Dalton, Tony at Tony Rouge, and we will be displaying when it goes live. We will post the link, and as well as we will still give you betting odds. We'll follow through with depth charts and whatnot. We will go the full mile for you to give you your best sporting odds. Before we wrap it up, Tony, any final thoughts?
Yes, my final thought comes from a Dave Naylor tweet and a stat that I'm sure you'll find absolutely astounding because it blew me away.
Oh, I know what you're referring to.
Here's one for you. You probably saw it from Dave Naylor.
Yeah.
Through 9 games, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, perfect 9 games, perfect season. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have only gained 1 more yard than they've surrendered. Just 1 single yard. And you're 9-0. How does the math on that work? Like, I don't even know how that is possible. But it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. For all the love we are giving BC, Bombers are kind of falling back into the background here a bit, media-wise. But again, it just goes to show you how absolutely dominant and amazing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been this year. And maybe this BC stuff is a blessing in disguise for Winnipeg, because maybe they don't have to answer so many three-peat questions or perfect season questions, because all eyes are on Nathan Rourke right now. So maybe this is exactly so stats like that can sneak through you and not know and need to pick it up on Twitter one day or this podcast. So thanks to Dave Naylor for bringing our attention to that.
I got an answer for that as we wrap it up. The answer as to why those stats in Winnipeg is 9-0, 5 words. Most valuable player, Zach Collaros. Not most outstanding. That's Nathan Works. Most valuable. There's not. It's not a thing in the CFL. Most valuable player, Zach Collaros. On that note, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. For Tony, I'm Daltz. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.